Okay, so welcome to Raiders. This is a tutorial video. The first thing you want to do is to check your base and then your opponent's base. So you want to go through and essentially check the power scores on all of your opponents. And the reason you want to do this is so that you can see who is tier 5 and who is not. So I look for tier 5, the number of 40 million players and so forth. And then I want to compare that against the number of players on my team. And so we can see immediately that because we are short-staffed and we have 2 tier 5s, but their power scores exceed ours, that we are going to be at a disadvantage. So the next thing when the match starts that you want to do is you only need to have one player go to the opponent's base, or to your, not the opponent's base, but to your airfields. One player each goes top, one goes bottom, and secures them. You can send more, but really you just want to send one march. He takes it, and then everybody else can teleport immediately out of the spawn zone. In Raiders, teleports are free. There might be a maximum limit to the number of teleports that you can take in the game, but they do not cost you gold or anything else. You may teleport from the spawn point to any airfield that you control. If you lose control of an airfield, you can no longer teleport there. If you take an enemy's airfield, you can teleport to their airfield. This is important because if you control the airfields, then you can teleport to their airfield and attack their bases that are outside the safe zone. Okay, so the other things to note on the map are the wrenches. Those are repair structures. They generate big points every minute, as do the armories. And the bunkers are great to hold, so you have a place to hide out and attack other places. They're also great because a lot of players tend to swarm bases. This is a common mistake against lower powered players. So low powered players will always attack your garrison. When they do that, they're just giving you points, right? So repairs in Raiders are free in terms of resources. You don't spend any resources at all to play Raiders. You don't spend, and if your garage size is also unlimited. So you can lose all of your units in the match, and you will not lose all your units can be damaged, and you'll never lose a single unit. Finally, at the end of the match, you get all of your units back when you go back to Europe or Biozone, meaning that even if you had 10 million units and you lost 10 million units, at the end of Biozone, or at the end of Raiders, you will have all your units repaired. Everything's back to normal. In Raiders, you can repair your units with speed ups or the regular way, and the number of units that you can repair comes down to your repair bunker or your repair shop. If you control any, that will speed it up, and the time that passes to repair them. So after I go ahead and teleport up, this is at the point where every base should be out of spawn except for those who took the initial places, the runners, the initial airfield takers. There are 5 minutes from when the airfields open until the time that you can take all the surrounding structures. You want to take the armory and the repairs drop, so that usually the repair shop becomes attacked first, but for some reason they took our armory first, or attempted to. I defended it. It's important to note, for instance, in this armory, you cannot have more than one unit inside it at a time. And not only that, as I believe that once you control it, it will not let you garrison it. It'll say you already control this building. So because of that, you can leave your unit inside, but if it's being contested, you should not exit the building, because then they can just walk right back in. So, you can see we play around a little bit here. I hold it as long as we can. I don't get the reinforcements that I need to hold this structure, so eventually I ditch out, because I'd rather have some units back than waste them and blow up my garage any further. Because if you do repair units in Raiders, it is quite expensive if you don't have enough repairs. So, what do we do after this? Well, we want to get the rally going, and we want to send it to the airfield. This is important, and this is why one of the ways in which low power players can contribute greatly to Raiders. The two keys to success in Raiders is rallying, intelligent rallies, and having fast units to secure the museum and early structures. Map control is literally the most important part of Raiders. If you can control the map, you can control who touches the artifact, right? The loot, essentially. And if you get the loot, you win the game. But more importantly, if you can control all 3 or 4 airfields, you will basically lock them down, and they will have to walk from their safe zone to the museum, which is at least 3 minutes, as opposed to, say, 1 to 2 minutes from an airfield. Timing and tempo is very critical in Raiders. And Tier 4, Tier 3, Tier 2, Tier 1 units, they all get successively faster. So the reason you send a Tier 1 infantry march to the airfield is because it's fast. You can get everything. You can sometimes get, I think you might even be able to get their airfield in certain cases, depending on when it opens or not. So having a fast march infantry can just dominate the game. Secondly, Tier 5 units, unless you are unless you are the top dog Tier 5 and no one can touch you, are not great for getting the artifact back to base, because they might not move fast enough to evade, right? Whereas a Tier 4 infantry march, for instance, can move oftentimes fast enough to evade any additional trouble if you have the correct weapons on it. So you can see that we spanked their airfield. It wasn't even a fair fight. It just steamrolled them, and that's the intelligent way to take a structure in any Kiss of War format. But you can see how they run around like lemmings jumping off a cliff, trying to take this structure back. And had we had any serious defense of this structure, they would have never gotten it back. They were in no position to hold anything from us. So this is what you should not do in general. This is what I like to call reckless base hitting. It is just it's foolish play that should be discouraged, because sending up 30 million power, 40 million power units against a Tier 5 like me with a strong ship and strong weapons, you might as well just be giving me points. Whereas if they put that into a reasonable rally, they might have had a chance, right? And that's really why you don't want to swarm unless you know that your target is weak, right? Like maybe you attack an opponent's base because you say, I'm I'm 35 million power and he's 35 million power. I can take this guy. But going up against a airfield or a bunker is just straight suicidal, because you don't know what's inside, but you probably do know that it's a tier 5, right? So these guys were idiots. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, there was a lot of idiot play on our side too, to be perfectly honest, but these guys have less excuses. So you can just see that this goes on, and I can show some video or some screens later. I think I put them in our Discord, but I mean, they're just ugly fights, even with their tier 5s. They have no business swarm attacking. So what you can do when you take their airfield is you can teleport in. You can have your allies teleport in and then secure and garrison and then tag you out. So then you tag out and you walk home. It takes you 2 minutes or 2 or 3 minutes. Then you can teleport up to the airfield again and then re-garrison it while your ally extracts himself and can repopulate his garrison, right? Now, from there, if you can control their airfield and opponents are in their airfield, you can attack their bases. So that is the surefire way of getting points. And again, teleports are free, so there's no reason not to use them. There is a video, I think, that I've uploaded before, and I will try to find it and post a link in our Discord and also in this YouTube link. And I believe it is with 5025 with Ray. And you can see this guy, he's crazy with his teleports. As soon as his base is getting smashed by me, the first thing he does is he teleports. He's like, I'm just gonna go to another airfield. And as soon as I beat up his friend CR7 and start porting him back to base with one of those base busting guns, he'll port right back. And that is a good way to prevent your face from getting smashed in, right? So I just want to stress that teleports are free. There's no reason not to be in the action. You can't lose units. So again, no reason not to be in the action, unless you're afraid of getting zeroed for the rest of the game. But if you're about to get zeroed, just teleport to a different airfield. The end. That's how you do it. You cannot teleport back to the safe zone, but you can teleport to any airfield that you can control. So, and it's important to have 2 airfields at a minimum at all times. So you'll see some other things that I do here, which is, it seems kind of like I'm just being petty or something, but I send out 1 march at a time when they mill around my base, or I withdraw and wait for them to forget about me. The reason I send out 1 march at a time is because I click on the units and find, if I find a tank destroyer march, I will send out infantry and tank destroyers. And then lastly, I will send out my tank. And the reason I do this is to generate a pincer attack on them without them having their entire force attack me. And so if they mill around your base, it's a good way to whittle down their numbers, because they have to walk back to their base and get repaired or replenish their units. And it takes 2 minutes. So you can, while you're waiting for your reinforcements to show up, you can score some relatively good points and do some serious damage to them by their inattentiveness. And that's what I do here for a while. That is generally the best way to get them to pay for occupying your territory. You can see that they don't want to attack my base, really. They do at the end, and they all die. It's one of those, rocket-style suicide lemming squads that just explodes on your base. But generally, a lot of players will know that you're strong because they'll see that they can't crack your airfield or that your power score is high or whatever. So they just won't attack your base, but they will attack the airfield, which is reasonably smart. But if they camp outside your base and do nothing, then oftentimes it's because they're not paying attention. And because of the nature of the mobile game, it's very difficult to select the units you want and respond quickly. And so you can use that to your advantage by sending a unit out from your base that's custom tailored to kill their unit. And as soon as he gets attacked from other units, all you do is press the retreat button. So that is a good strategy. You can also set up multiple marches in your in this window right here, that where you select your units, and you can just say send March 2, send March 3, send March 4, right? Now, if you attack a single march, and even if you send the weak unit against it, say I send infantry against their tanks. If I send infantry against their tanks as the second or the third unit, then I will still get pincer attack on them, and their tank will not really be doing that much to me because he's focused on the first march that attacked. So again, if you're fast and you practice it, you can inflict some damage and then you walk back before they can reply anything to you. And again, if that unit is at half strength and then you have a real fight, he cannot go back and replenish his units. But you, since you're right at your base, can do it as many times as you want, and you control them until they're weak, and then you kill them. That is how you do it while you wait for reinforcements. Now, unfortunately, again, in this match, I can't really demonstrate how the museum works because I'm stuck in this airfield the entire time fighting them. But that is kind of what happens when you're a tier 5 player, unless you overwhelm them, because you get stuck doing most of the fighting, and the lower power players have to do most of the looting. That's just how it works. And so there's definitely a place for weaker players, and it's an important place. It's the game-winning portion of the game, right? If you are employing lower-powered units, there is still a great value that you add to the game in the form of capturing structures that are unoccupied, because structures tend to get unoccupied at all times, just because you're moving around trying to kill things. And secondly, because your units are faster. So lower powered players really benefit from the following: using faster units and using weapons that provide substantial speed bonuses. And even if you're not contributing to the kill count, this is not what is necessary to win the game. What is necessary to win the game are not kills. What is necessary to win the game is map control and looting of the museum. So as a lower powered player, you can be quite effective simply sniping structures and looting the center area. The way you accomplish looting the center museum is when it notifies you there's a little icon in the top left, the statue. When that's flashing, that means there's an artifact ready to be retrieved and you want to get it. And if you see it, you want to intercept their artifact and take it from them. So it's a little bit like capture the flag. Raiders in general is very good for team play practice. And the reason it's very good for practice is because you don't have to worry about losing units. So it is pure practice and it is pure fun because there's no stress involved. If you want to spend money on repairs, then you can go ahead and do so. I oftentimes do the case because I like to have a full complement of units, but it is not necessary. And likewise, you do not spend any money on teleports. And if we do good at raiders, then we can attract other players to join our guild because they want to see a team that gets excited for winning, or they want to join the winning team. You'll notice that in this video, if you look at the chat interface, some of our players are quite frustrated. And that's because in most Raiders games, one side gets to be the punching bag and the other side gets to be the fist. So in this particular game, I was the fist and Muck was the punching bag. And that's kind of how it goes. But this can be exploited if you consistently can defeat your opponents and frustrate them to no end. Then assuming that team was not very good and was already weakened internally, then we might be able to contact them and ask them to join our guild. That's how a few of our players got poached, and that's how we've poached a few of the other servers' players. So anyway, again, it's a little hard to see exactly what's going on in each portion, but I think you can watch it and it's fairly self-explanatory. And if I see anything else, I will speak up. But otherwise, I'll just let the video run and you can watch what's happening. I guess I will say one other thing. You do not oftentimes need 5 marches on the field. If you run 5 marches on the field, you will deplete your troop supply very quickly. And as I was saying, you don't need to use repairs if you don't want repair boosters. So by sending a weak march out that has no purpose, you're just wasting units and repair boosters when you can use them better in terms of garrison of your main structures and conserving repairs. So when you attack, make sure you know what you're attacking. Because if you don't have a strong march, for my case, for instance, my tank destroyer march is quite weak. There's no reason to have my tank destroyers out there wasting troops unless I'm attacking something very specific. So oftentimes what I do is I only run a couple marches. And as you can see, if you look at my score periodically through the match when I check, that I was scoring very highly. And the reason I scored highly is because I used my units efficiently. So whenever you attack, make sure that you're attacking with purpose and not wasting units, say like attacking tanks with infantry, right? If you're going to attack a tank with infantry, you're going to waste units unless it's the second or the third pincer attack, in which case you are probably getting a better trade depending on how the situation goes. So raiders, if you're curious about some of the weapons in Kiss of War, Raiders has some specific weapons for it, and other weapons are not really designed for it. Flamethrower is pretty much made for Raiders, as is I think it's the MP something, it's the gun that Ling has in her hands. It does base damage. If you wreck a player's base and you damage their defense too much, what happens is that base will immediately port back to spawn. And if it ports back to spawn, all the units within that are outside of that base, for instance, will be ported back as well. And I believe they might even be damaged or sent to the wounded category for repairs. At least that's the way it works, say, in Expedition. So it is a good way to clear the map of enemy units and gain a minimum 2-minute time advantage, right? Because they have to port back after you send them back to their spawn. So these are things that you want to keep in mind, right? Obviously, the Springfield is good. It's pretty much good in every situation. Shotgun is good in every situation. The Lee Enfield is amazing on Raiders because it gets you somewhere really, really fast, right? The Sten is also a pretty good gun for Raiders, but not as good as the Lee Enfield in most cases, right? And the obviously the Riley and Garrison guns are quite good. Everything else kind of works as intended. So keep that in mind when you are running Raiders, that weapon selection is critically important, and a lot of the weapons that are really good in Raiders might not be the best weapons for regular Biozone. So Raiders is its own self-contained event, and it is very popular in Kiss of War, and so it has some specific weapons associated with it. Remember to watch the remainder of the video so that you can listen to the rest of the commentary, which appears at the end. So I'm going to talk about the end of the match here starting now so that I can keep this video size around 30 minutes. You're going to see at the end of the match that our kill scores were virtually the same, right? So, and the repairs were basically the same. And so what this really tells me more than anything else is that, believe it or not, this match was relatively balanced in terms of kills. What it does tell me is that we were not efficient in dealing with our enemy's movements, and that is a function of experience and of discipline. You can see that here the total number of kills is basically the same. Where they got all the points was because they knew how to take the artifacts and they knew how to control the airfields. But in terms of kills, they were virtually identical. So I don't think that this match was that unbalanced. I think that this match had mostly come down to late arriving players on our side and poor understanding of the mechanics. So to that end, I would hope that everybody practices so that we can win this in the future.